Next big commitment, I think let's stay tuned here for the next 20 minutes. I think that's going to be the next one. Top 25 overall cornerback Josiah Wagner is set to make his decision. So I think that is something that you should look at. And then, as we talked about, Derek LeBlanc is next this week as well. Will be another commitment to keep an eye on the 28th of July, or this week. So let's go back to the defensive side of the ball, just kind of looking at the recruiting side of things. So we talked again, just kind of at the defensive line. Oklahoma doesn't have any necessarily commitments from a defensive line. I mean, you want to talk about PJ Adebare from an edge, yeah, but you don't have a defensive lineman in the class as of yet. I think Oklahoma probably takes maybe anywhere from 3 to 4 in this cycle, and so if everything goes the way it looks like it might go with Derek LeBlanc, you've got one of those checkbox there. So with him, keep an eye on that on Thursday the 28th for that commitment. Another guy that Oklahoma's in on, Jordan Renaud, 4-star defensive lineman out of Tyler, Texas. Again, very, very highly regarded, number 7 ranked defensive lineman, top 100 overall, 6'3", 245. This is an Oklahoma and Alabama battle. Right now, you kind of like where Oklahoma's at. Nothing set in stone or anything like that. This is one that's probably going to take a while, but again, this is an Oklahoma and Alabama battle. I think probably those two are the ones that are going to. He's going to go to one of those two schools. Johnny Bones, he is a recent decommitment from Texas A&M, 4-star from Converse, Texas. Oklahoma's in the mix. There's not a whole lot of information coming out of that camp right now, other than the fact that it's a fairly open commitment, and I don't know that it'll be something that Oklahoma. Not that they won't win out, but it's not something that's going to be that we'll see in the near future. I think he'll be a guy that waits a little bit before he makes that decision. Kelby Collins, 4-star defensive lineman from Gardendale, Alabama. You got the usual suspects: Alabama, Auburn, Florida, South Carolina. I think are in the mix with him as well as Oklahoma. Don't really see Oklahoma as a big leading contender. Certainly that could change, but right now Oklahoma's still there. I think he's probably there in that top 5 there with those schools that I mentioned. But obviously it's time. It's hard to get some of those kids out of that SEC country, so to speak, for now. And then, all right, DJ Hicks. He's the crown jewel of the class, guys. He's the guy that Oklahoma doesn't have committed. I know what it says here, number 6 overall. This kid's the best player in the country. Overall, the best player. And you guys hang tight. This is going to be a recruitment that's going to keep going for the next 6 months. He's not going to. This is probably going to be, if he signs early, it's going to be a January timeframe. So this is one of those you just got to kind of keep your wits about you and be patient with him. Still, I like where Oklahoma sits with him, comparatively speaking, understanding that this is about another 6-month process for him. But I think really outside of that, I think he's going to be, from what I've understood here at the end of this month, he's going to be at Oklahoma's recruiting event unless something changes. Again, an incredible priority for Oklahoma to get this kid. This is a guy that's a starter day one wherever he goes next year. Whether that's Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Alabama, wherever it is, I think he starts day one. And so he's a game changer at that position. And so obviously something to keep your eye on as Oklahoma continues to try to woo him, impress him, and see how those things go. A few more defensive linemen here that Oklahoma's still in on. Edric Hill, 4-star defensive lineman, Kansas City, Missouri, same high school, I believe, of the recent offensive lineman, Caden Green, commitments from North Kansas City, Missouri, number 28 defensive line. Again, this looks like on the surface right now probably an Oklahoma, Alabama competition. But we'll see how that works out. I think that's probably the two where he's most comfortable with from a relationship perspective, and where it looks like he's probably going. Um, Cade McDonald, again, he's another guy. I know that there's a couple of questions about him. Yeah, Oklahoma's still recruiting him. Again, SEC country, four-star defensive line. You got to like the size, interior at a 6'3", 310. He's a guy that can obviously plug the middle and be, really a great, another really good defensive lineman. Amari Washington, four-star from Chandler, Arizona. And I think the one thing that you can see consistently across the board is, the level of talent that Oklahoma has here, that they are recruiting at the defensive line. It's consistently top. All of these guys that I've mentioned are mostly top 30, top 40 defensive linemen in the country, and a lot of them are top 10 that Oklahoma's either in on or are very much, in the final, 2, 3, 4, 5, wherever you're seeing it at this point, based on the progression of where they are in the cycle. And so another guy, Tassili Akana, is a guy that Oklahoma desperately wants. This is a guy that heard Parker talk about this a couple of times, where a guy that Venables kind of circles maybe one or two individual kids, and he throws a ton of his weight around that, and Akana is the guy, and so I think things are trending in a very, very positive way for Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma gets him, again, one of the best edge guys in the country, number 8 overall, top 100 overall kid, 6'4", 225. He's got great length. So he's a guy that Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma should feel good about where they're at with Akana. I think he's a guy. He will ultimately. I would be surprised if he doesn't commit to Oklahoma. Again, at the edge, Colton Vasek, 4-star out of enemy territory, Austin, Texas. Again, really good size, 6'6", 225. He's a guy that I believe is going to be at the recruiting event, this weekend. And so, depending on how that goes, I think things are starting to trend Oklahoma's way to a certain degree with Vasek. And so he's another guy to keep an eye on. And then we kind of finish it out at the kind of the defensive backfield. So we one of the last remaining Oklahoma targets that Oklahoma has, Jacoby Johnson, 4-star athlete, Mustang. Probably projects to be more of a safety or cornerback, 6'3", 185, top 100 overall. This is a guy look out for, and I don't have a commitment date. Would be surprised if he commits pretty soon. Heard a few whispers that might happen, but I don't know if it's this week or within a few weeks, or what it looks like. But would be surprised if he doesn't make it into Norman. We've talked a little bit about Josiah Wagner, so we'll find out here in probably about 15-20 minutes exactly what happens with Wagner. Again, fully expect. I think he'll raise that Oklahoma hat here in just a few minutes. And then there's a couple of safety kids that are committed to other places that flips are either likely or something that could very well happen. So Peyton Bowens, and he's been a Notre Dame commit for a while, 4-star safety, number 5 safety overall, 51. Our number 5 safety in the country, number 51 overall prospect. There's just been continued rumor about him flipping to Oklahoma. Just hasn't happened yet. I think he's a guy that again going to visit. Very kind of interested in taking visits. There's a lot of obviously mutual interest between him and Oklahoma. We'll see how that goes. It's one of those things that a lot of people has thought that he would eventually flip. Hasn't happened yet, but we'll see if that happens. I think it probably will, but it'll just depend on how some of these visits go. And another kid, he's a high school teammate of Bowen, is Ryan Yates. He's an LSU commit, another safety, 27th overall. And again, he's a guy that maybe not as much as Bowen, but Oklahoma is really kind of in on there, kind of wedging their foot in the door so to speak, with that. And then the last two guys that I'll talk about here from defensive backfield, Makari Vickers from Tallahassee, Florida, number 6 ranked safety, number 79 overall. Over the last couple of weeks, he's released his top threes: Oklahoma, Michigan, and Alabama. Again, there's about 3 or 4 of these kids on the defensive side that's really between Oklahoma and Alabama, and who wins out. Really, I'm starting to like a lot more where Oklahoma fits with Vickers. I think Oklahoma leads here. He doesn't have a commitment date to my knowledge at this point, but I think signs are starting to point in a very positive direction for Vickers in Oklahoma. And then the last guy is Ben Minich from Westchester, Ohio. He's a guy. Don't really concern yourself as much with the 3-star, and the rank where he's at. He's a guy that much like a Adibari has kind of started to skyrocket up the ranking, so to speak. And I think you'll see him continue to do that throughout this year and through the period. I think he's also another guy that is supposed to be at this recruiting event that Oklahoma's having here at the end of the month. So